Yeah.
And it begins, I think, with us being able to say, I am damaged goods. I mean, just the awareness, I am damaged goods. I am in pain, not because your words triggered my heart. Your words may have triggered my heart, but what is it in my heart that was triggered? How can I now acknowledge, oh, this is my pain. Thank you for triggering my heart. Don't tiptoe around. Don't try and find words that won't trigger my old pain. I've got to know about it. I've got to know about it. And if it's not in my memory, I've got to know about it from my generational line so that I can now say, oh, I'm going to tell the story in this moment of time, my story, my grandmother's story, or my great-grandmother's story. I'm going to tell the story so that I can begin the ending of what's held in our DNA as a family. And that's what you experienced, and I'm sure experienced in other ways too, but that's what you seem to have experienced at the Sarajevo conference.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Oh, definitely. Their families are affected, and in a good way. And the fact that they were there to share their strength, their silent strength. I mean, just the strength of their presence, and their enjoyment. And that speaks volumes right there. Yeah.
I want to point out that it's really powerful that the woman from Ireland and brought things that are considered not art, but women's work. They brought the things, the simple things that you need in day-to-day life, like a quilt and like booties. And what they did was raise that to a really powerful symbol to say whatever it is that we do, we are powerful. We can create powerful symbols out of the simplest things in life. I can't remember the poem, but I just remember Marge Piercy writing a poem and saying that she started writing not about big, lofty ideas and philosophical concepts, but she wrote about, as a poet, day-to-day things and the power of the commonplace. I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. You talked about I know that in the past decade, it's come to light that the digestive system has its own nervous system that impacts us, and now the heart has its own nervous system that impacts us in a way that we hadn't realized that before. So you're saying the reproductive system also has this?
I'm not familiar with the systems that you're talking about. The heart has its own, and the digestive. I'm not really familiar with the science of that.
Yeah.
So I would assume now the womb is the uncharted territory. Okay, the final frontier. Because who cared about the womb? We just made babies, right? And it's they haven't really studied it, the capacities of the womb. And so in terms of, I guess what's coming to my mind as you're speaking is that there are powers of the womb. I spoke about it as a portal of wisdom. The whole female body is a portal of wisdom, but it's rooted in the womb. I think it'd be a fascinating study, Emma, for them to study the nervous system of the reproductive system. I mean, I'm not sure if that's what the neural network is, but it seems like it is.
That seems like that's what you're talking about. If there's a neural network, then that is its own little nervous system that then connects into the larger system that we're finding out has many little nodes, digestive, and it's almost like the digestive system is its own little animal that kind of lives inside of us and shares things.
Interesting.
But
interesting.
as a woman who had a hysterectomy, then I wonder how deeply that impacts my nervous system and my voice, and how many of us who have had hysterectomies, I know that previous to my hysterectomy, I had a myomectomy, which takes out the fibroid tumors, and the doctor deliberately kind of cut my womb so I could not have children. And I didn't find that out until the second doctor did the hysterectomy. And so my entire uterus was covered in scar tissue. And so I'm just thinking about not just the energetic repercussions of that, but also the nervous system repercussions of that on a just purely physical basis. And I think that would be a fascinating study.
Yes.
What I can interject here is this. Of course, on an energetic level, you're talking energetics, which is kind of the foundation of it. All of those, all of that, those power centers, if you will, and that's a whole. The way you laid it out, Vajra Ma, is really in alignment with what I see in the larger 15 chakra power centers. But in relationship to an organ being removed, what does that do neurologically to the physical body suit itself? Because this is a physical body suit, and then we have that spiritual energetics too. And in relationship to that, my daughter, as you may know, just had a heart transplant last December. Well, in a heart transplant, they take out the heart. And when they do that, they have to cut all connections, all physical connections that the heart has in order to move it off. Now, when they bring the new heart in, there's certainly many of those connections they reconnect, or the heart isn't going to do its job. But on some of those subtle neurological levels, those may or may not rebuild. Mm-hmm. Now, that's just in that Western medical model. So would it be worth considering conversationally a dialogue with the bodysuit that says, whoa, do I have the right connections going? And and what can we do to build them and become, again, the designer of your body, working with the intelligence of the bodysuit? Because certainly it does disrupt on that physiological level. It does disrupt neurological pathways. There's no way it could not. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
in those transplants, they've found, that's fascinating, Sharon, in the transplants, they found that if you get somebody else's heart, you may have some of their characteristics. Yeah. Whether or not they were a good dancer, whether they had a sense of rhythm. Somebody gets somebody else's liver and who never liked beer, and now they like beer because the person who had that liver, the transplanted liver, liked beer. And they found that there's actually proclivities. The organ has, like you said, Emma, its own, the systems have their own nervous system. Well, they have their own mind. They have their own knowing. They have their own proclivities, their own personality, you might say. So that's just like really mind-blowing. But I like what you said, Sharon, about you could consciously work on an energetic level with that new organ and, create pathways that one who doesn't work consciously might not ever create, these subtler levels. Emma, I do say to women who've had a hysterectomy, when they come, because the practice that I teach, the moving meditation I've been teaching since 1992, the tantric dance of feminine power, I call it, is womb-based. And we always say you still have the womb energetically, and it would show up in Kirlian photography, right? So there may be a loss of something, but there's not a total loss. It's a difference. And any woman can still connect into that energetic center that her body was formed around from the beginning. So that's important to know too. Right. It's really uncharted territory, isn't it? Like they could do a lot of scientific study that I think would be valuable.
Yeah.
In this.
It's like when you're working energetically, you're living ahead of science. you're working in the unseen before there's science to validate, but working in the energetic world, you have your own way of validating. And so I can validate for you, Vajra, and I'm sure, other people, when you have a transplanted organ, that organ comes with its own identity based on and memory, etc. And so having worked, with my daughter on that level and with her heart and letting it have the voice so that it could say what it needed, what needed to be let go of, and what needed to be changed is very powerful. And so, this is what women do when they get together. They remind one another what they know that they've forgotten they know, or what your sister remembers that now, I can now remember. And the power of women also is disrupted by keeping women apart and unrooted from each other. And I don't know about women in the audience, but having grown up in a patriarchal system, as gentle as that was for me, I still walked away with the concept that, hey, girlfriends were great until you get that guy in your life, then you don't anymore. And we give up sisterhood, the roots of our being.
Yeah.
To be with a partner that we have been told is going to keep us safe, and that is another total corruption. So I would assume that these women that you met in Sarajevo, probably a lot of them, in their world, a lot of their men had been killed in war, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yes. And so they did and have, been able to bond in different ways than us here in the West, who keep looking for the man to take care of us. That rootedness of women is so, so important.
Right. Crucial.
So I'm going to give Emma one more opportunity, and then Vajra, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can say what it is you haven't said yet that you want to say, where people can know more about you, etc. So Emma, if there's anything you want to ask first, and then we'll put it right on over to Vajra Ma.
One of the things that caught my attention was you said something towards the beginning about not only telling our own stories, but telling the stories of other women. And I know that you've worked with women in all over the world. Right now, there's a real awareness of cultural sensitivity and how important it is not to, how do we balance telling others women's stories without taking away their voices? Because that also is a tendency that we have. Do you have any experience with that?
Directly, no, I don't. I am aware of one woman who has an autistic child, an adult autistic female woman, daughter, and she's expressed to someone that I know, and she's expressed the fact that it's not her story to tell, her daughter's story. So there's a sense of respect there. Yeah. I suppose if we're going to tell someone else's story, maybe we do it anonymously and use it as an illustration and an example. And it's coming from our own filter, to be aware of that. And, even telling your own story, you're filtering it. It's like, I'm working on my autobiography right now. And it's like, how do you frame it? How do you frame it in a way that brings the real truth out, the real truth? So it's a really big question that you've asked, and important to respect the distinctions of cultures and a person's right to privacy and a right to interpret their own life. Yeah. The thing that I would like to leave us all with, or I'd like to, talk about here at the end, is that and it kind of relates to what you're talking about, Emma. And ultimately, there's no distinction between the womb of a black woman, a white woman,